What's going on, everybody? This is Jeff with Altcoin Buzz. I'm going to make an interesting video here where I've outlined notes that say pros and cons of cryptocurrency. It's just kind of taken everything that I've already seen and looked into and communicated with you guys back and forth. And this is kind of the consensus mutually that we've come about together as a collective. And so thank you to you guys for helping me put this list together in the Altcoin Army. So shout out to you guys for sure. Couldn't do this stuff without you, I'll tell you that right now. And that's not a joke. Together we are stronger than individually. It's helped keep me in the game, honestly. So pros and cons. I'm going to go over the pros first, and then we'll go into the cons. And you guys have asked me for me to be a little bit more pessimistic instead of just always optimistic. So that's why I'm putting it out there like this. The number one thing that I want to talk about before I do anything is the Winklevoss Twins. They've finally broken their silence. They say, Winklevoss, if you can't see Bitcoin at $320,000, you just lack imagination. So they've spoken to Bloomberg, and they've kind of come out of their shell here lately. These guys own, I think, about around 1% of all Bitcoins. And they're also part of Gemini and some other exchanges. So they're big players in cryptocurrency, and they're also connected to, you know, the establishment in a way. So they're really bullish on Bitcoin. Novogratz is starting to come back out again. So things are kind of looking back. The FUD is kind of at least ceased temporarily. We'll see what ends up happening. It's just funny how all of a sudden people are all of a sudden talking good about Bitcoin again, right? So we'll see. It was a tough period for everybody. So number one thing that I want to talk about for a pro is the transfer of wealth that takes place. I've touched on this a couple times. The transfer of wealth between the old money and the new money that the millennials have to get out of debt and drive this engine stronger, right? As you guys go from your 20s to your 30s to your 40s, you guys are becoming the catalyst for what drives this global marketplace. Whether you're in the United States or in Singapore or in South Korea or Europe, it does not matter. Australia, New Zealand, South America, Antarctica, for all we care. The millennials are the future, not these old money types. So at some point in time, it's got to get off the old money. The old money's got to transfer, and the best way to transfer that is not into the hands of not all of it into the hands of their descendants, because if that happens, those people don't have. I don't know. Typically, when a child is handed the silver spoon, we know how that turns out. They're just not going to live up to the same expectation or the same delivery as the forefather, right? So there's going to have to be some people outside of that core establishment, like you guys. They're going to have to get some wealth to really drive this thing. So it's on you to have that hunger and that desire within you to make that happen. When you get the wealth, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to go out and shoot up, you know, drugs? Are you going to go buy a big block of cocaine and try and ship it across the border? Or are you going to do something positive, like, you know, maybe build innovative technologies or housing projects for people in low-income areas and create other opportunities for people and jobs for people in the economy? That's the kind of stuff that I'm saying. So are you going to do irresponsible stuff with your wealth, or are you going to do responsible stuff? So that's a pro, right? The fact that it's creating that opportunity of a transfer of wealth to come into your guys' hands so you can get out of debt and get ahead. Next, unbanked. So there's also a lot of people around the world, we've talked about this, that have cell phones, but they don't have a bank account. So now with cryptocurrency, they can actually transact online if they're doing business with cryptocurrency. This is where Electronium and Telcoin really have an interesting utility, right, as currencies. So I think there's about 4 billion people, don't quote me on that do not have bank accounts. So that means they're not transacting in the global financial community. They're not transacting online. So this is e-cash, right? Next, that's the next thing. It is a digital e-cash. We are at a point now where we need digital e-cash more so than just trying to take fiat dollars and try and move them around and take 3 to 7 days to get there with, you know, blah, blah, blah involved and all these different third parties and stuff like that. Western Union, I guess, is the most efficient thing we can come up with, but I think we can even do better than Western Union. And that's e-cash, digital currency. Another thing, it's creating innovation. So that's kind of what I already touched on, but through the crowdfunding, people are getting funded to innovate and create new things and find new amazing technologies, and that's what's really empowering a lot of people and projects at this moment. And that's what ICOs do. When you buy their coin or token, you're investing in their company. That's great, because the stocks, many of you guys are not interested in participating in the stock market right now, so you guys are getting the market introduced to you through cryptocurrency. Some of you guys are stock crossovers, but also there's that younger crowd that doesn't really mess with stocks or play around with stocks, so they've gotten into cryptocurrency and markets this way. We already touched on speed of transaction, but that's really a big aspect here. I mean, to be able to send money within 10 minutes is quite amazing technology, with very low risk, right? Outside of the fact that you might miss a number on the public address, that's something you don't want to do, right? You get to hold all your money, so it's decentralized. You can be in control of your own money and your own wallet. It's kind of an interesting new thing for this generation, right? Holding your own money and not having to store it in a bank. And that's the decentralization of it, is the fact that it's managed. A lot of this is managed off of smart contracts and just basically, without a centralized leadership core base, right? Now, some of the cons. There's a lack of use cases, okay? And I talked about this on my Twitter here, right here. If there was one thing that truly does concern me, even more than government regulation, is the lack of real-world use cases for many of these coins and tokens. Outside of exchange tokens and some social media, we need true innovation from these projects. And if I go over here and I look at most of these projects, Ripple's, they're kind of being used, but there's not a real use case for them. I mean, Ethereum's being used for a bunch of tokens, but as we crawl down this list here, I mean, the currencies are being used in the form of currency, but List doesn't have a use case. Tron, I mean, if you want to call the P-Way app something, but that's, I mean, whatever. And then you have VeChain, Qtum, Icon, Bitcoin Gold, Nano. But, I mean, if we just talk about coins that really have use cases, Steam has a website, right? Binance is an exchange. Power Ledger has some use case. But for the most part, most of these coins, their projects have not reached a level where they're getting the adoption that we'd like to see. We'd like to see the next Amazon come out of this. We'd like to see the next Facebook come out of this, the next Google come out of this. And they don't have to be in the same industry, but the companies that are at that same trajectory. Ethereum appears to be the next big company, right? That's the one that stands out to me. People have also said that Neo is going to do that in the Asian amphitheater, so we'll see. Cardano is another one that might compete. Between Cardano and Ethereum, these two will really probably prove to be the two juggernauts, and then Neo in Asia with Qtum, and then Lisk in most of the European areas. So that's just kind of some projections that I have, but whether that comes true or not, I do not know. Now, here's another thing. Lack of transparency leading to bank issues, right? So there's a lack of transparency in this industry that's causing for criminal activity to take place. So the governments are concerned that North Korea is participating in this market because there's not enough transparency for them to be able to feel confident in governing. And I don't see government going away, but what do I know, right? I mean, Gary Vee said that Bitcoin and Ethereum could overthrow every government in the world. That was what he said something along those lines. He said blockchain is powerful enough to overthrow the governments. But in the short term, government's still around, and I'd be surprised if government ever went away. But that transparency with how these transactions are being made and these privacy coins makes it difficult for the government to put sanctions on Iran or North Korea. It's just something to keep in mind. Another thing that's a con is the euphoria and the immaturity that takes place in the investor mindset that concerns me. The euphoria is the one thing that you got to look out for in the bubble. When you start seeing people that they're avoiding the cautions. The cautions are being waved. The caution flag is waved, but because people are so euphoric and high, they don't have time to pay attention to that, and that's kind of what tends to come about with the younger people, where they just get reckless with it. And that's that euphoria, immaturity that we're talking about. The exchanges functioning as banks but having security issues, there's always that lingering gray cloud, like what happens if an exchange gets hacked. We saw that happen today with Binance, where everyone was jumping down Binance's throat because their exchange went down, and they were like, I hope my coins are okay. Everyone's thinking about that, so we'll see what ended up happening there. So that leads me to my next point, security. There is that issue of security. I mean, my Ether wallet's having issues. Exchanges are always potentially having issues. So the security aspect of cryptocurrency is just not where it is with the fiat world. So another thing to keep in mind is the high cost of mining, the proof of work. So there's staking and proof of work. So, but the proof of work, the mining for Bitcoin, is an environmental disaster waiting to happen because of how much money it costs and how much power it costs to generate a Bitcoin, one Bitcoin. I mean, if you look at the carbon footprint of Bitcoin moving forward, it's pretty high. So staking coins seem to be more of the future, I would say, but we'll see. Another thing that we have is the taxation. Now that's a con because cryptocurrency is not used as a currency, it's treated as an asset. So it's really difficult for the government to, tax it as a currency. So they tax it as a capital gains, and that causes a problem for the investor and just a whole big long paper trail for day traders and all that, right? And the last thing is high volatility. Because there is high volatility, it's easy to get swept away with the currents. A powerful wave comes in, powerful wave goes out, and it always takes something or someone or somehow with it, right? Like on this last dip, we saw a lot of people just crash out because they thought it was going down. Now they're like, whoa, 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 can I get a replay on that? And when it goes way up, that gets people FOMOing into things, and then when it hits 18 to 20,000, they buy, and then it goes back, and they're like, so there's that volatility that causes that problem with investor confidence. So that's my list of pros and cons. Let me know what you guys think. I made this video to kind of outline my thoughts based on what we've all talked about over the last couple months. I hope this clears some of the air, and thank you to everyone who's been liking these videos and showing your support for us, and that's what keeps me going. Thank you to everyone who comments and engages in our conversations, follows us on Twitter. Thank you to everyone who's been following me on Blockchain J, and most importantly, Altcoin Buzz IO, where everybody's at. We have 64,000 people over there, and we're growing every single day. We're doing more videos like this where we talk about things on the fly on Twitter. And also, we're on Instagram. If you haven't already checked us out on Instagram, our links are right here. We have Instagram and Facebook. So we'll see you all next time. Subscribe to this channel if you like, and click that bell if you like to get notifications.